Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends.
Welcome to the show that never ends. Sexual Healing Podcast. Conversations will address concerns and celebrations within the misunderstood and misinformed world of sexual being. Your hosts, Dr. Bill, Mac, and Pipes, bring insight from different sexual health perspectives, covering 70 years of experience.
While being funny.
You have changed sex for America.
Don't you tell me that it's less good now.
No, it's better now. Everyone knows it.
As America's strong.
All right. And we're back for yet another lesson in sexual health, Sexual Healing Podcast. Thank you for coming back, guys. We are with our friends, our co-hosts, Mac and Pipes. I think we've mentioned this, that Pipes is a brand new mother-in-law. She's all kind of like bitchy right now. Let's see what happens, and judgmental. We're going to talk about that in a second. We've got our production crew, Jose and Shelby, who are offline right now, feverishly trying to figure out what the hell I'm going to talk about this evening. And we have, again, our safety crew, which include Cody. Tucker's outside in the perimeter, making sure that we can speak freely. So thanks for coming back, guys. We're going to talk about sex therapy. A short clip on Dr. Ruth. I grew up with Dr. Ruth on TV, who was one of the first sex therapists that I can remember. 4'7" German refugee and a sniper in Israel. Blows me away. That's very cool. I'd love that resume. I'd like to be a little taller than 4'7". But she has done a lot and still does at 90, a tremendous amount. 94 years okay. Old. A tremendous amount for the world of sex therapy. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to figure out what the hell that is, why we need it, why are there some stigmas associated with that, if they still are in 2022. But first, let's get a little insight into what it's like to be a brand new mother-in-law. Pipes, tell you, you blew it. You laughed, so everyone knows you're the brand new mother-in-law.
I know, weird.
Now, keep in mind that on our Sexual Healing podcast TikTok, we did a hard-hitting, extensive interview, browbeating interview with your daughter and new son-in-law. It is on, I don't know, I think there's so many followers right now. If you haven't seen it, it's absolutely too late. You're going to be way in the back of the line to review it. But tell us about your great event, and tell us what it's like to be a mother-in-law that hasn't been in trouble yet for being a mother-in-law.
Not yet, thank God. Well, it's only been 3 days, so I think so far so good. No, we had like the most amazing event here on Friday night. Probably turned out, I didn't do an actual count. I think there was about 300 people at my house. It was gorgeous. Absolutely the most gorgeous, wonderful, fun event. And I can actually even say that I had such a good time. So yeah, so far so good.
Well, congratulations. I know that our production crew over here made the flight. We saw it and heard it from afar. We were not allowed to get on the grounds. I didn't know it was black tie only, but there was a dress code, huge security. It was huge, but it sounded great. And though none of us got a chance to eat any of the food or have the wedding cake, people's faces looked like they enjoyed it. So I'm sure it was wonderful. Don't know from firsthand, but we just observed people having a great time. And congratulations to you, your daughter, and your new son-in-law.
Thank you.
Was it a cake?
And they had a ton of fun last week when I made them come in here and jump on our little podcast so we could do some highlights for TikTok. Bless their hearts. They're such good, what's the word I'm looking for?
People? Married. They're such
Um,
good married people. How's that?
They are such good married people. I guess the beauty is they've been together for so long. They're such a good couple. They're such a perfect couple together. And I think we kind of talked about this a little bit after they even walked out. But he just loves my daughter so much, and that's all I can ask for as a mom is to have somebody who, that I trust and I feel has that loyalty and yeah, and it was shown. It was shown over and over and over again throughout the day between the two of them, and it was just lovely.
Well, not only heartwarming because we can see the glow. In fact, Jose's trying to capture that, and let me see if we can monetize that glow. But it's convenient because he married your daughter, so it's good that he loves her, and he's good. It's good that he's a good soul. So, congratulations, and we wish them the best. Let your daughter know to ease off on her her agent. She spends 30 seconds on the show and she's already looking for royalties. Well, I guess it'll pay for the honeymoon. So we are so pleased, and we wish to have them back again. Let's talk about sexual healing as it relates to the requirement of a sex therapist. Now, as a physician and as someone who has only stood on your shoulders as a psychologist, Pipes, that there's something in between the medical aspect, writing for medication, talking about physical anatomic issues, and the psychologist of how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about body image, how we deal with depression, anxiety, all those other things. There's an area in sexual activity that covers sex therapists that is clearly unknown for many, many people, and is something that is an uncomfortable environment. Years ago, decades ago, when we talked about having a therapist for depression or going to a psychologist or going to a psychiatrist for certain things, we had to make the jump that mental health issues, mental illness, was no different than heart disease or diabetes. It's a problem that's fixable. We are still in that era for a lot of us, certainly a lot of my patient population that I suggest go to a therapist, a sex therapist. We're still in that era where, do we really need that? There's some sort of stigma that's still attached, at least in the population, the pushback that I get when I suggest it. Where are you guys at? What are your thoughts about that? Certainly talking to us, our audience, about your friends, the people you've dealt with, and how it relates to your work in the industry over the last couple decades.
Well, let me ask, because in all honesty, like the whole sex therapy aspect, can you explain, maybe to me, to the viewers, what's the difference between sex therapy and marriage counseling? Because there's obviously a difference, but I don't know if people understand that difference.
Okay, great question. I think that a lot of the sex therapists started out as licensed social workers and marriage counselors. I mean, that is, at least in California, that is a credential that is utilized, and people branch out from there and become sex therapists. So when we talk about sex therapy credentialing, we're really talking about people who have some sort of level of master's or doctorate in psychology, someone who has work in experience in marriage counseling, but also goes on beyond that to work in sex therapy. And clearly the big distinction is you don't have to be married to have concerns about comfort level and sexual activity. You don't even have to have a partner. There are a lot of people that can't engage, don't have the experience, don't have the comfort level in engaging in a partner, and don't really know how to get involved with sexual activity. They don't know how to enjoy themselves. They don't understand that masturbation, self-stimulation is a part of knowing their body and is certainly acceptable and certainly very common. It's not a taboo anymore. You don't go blind necessarily. I actually stopped when I started wearing glasses, but it doesn't cause all the craziness, the insanity that certain societal norms dictate, and certainly certain religious norms dictate. It's different than it was 20 years ago. So marriage counseling and sex therapy are related, but sex therapy goes beyond something that allows us to feel good about our bodies, not necessarily relating to someone else, and not necessarily involved in a committed relationship. We're talking about 2022, where there's a lot of different comfort levels and guidelines for sexual health. Am I in the neighborhood of explaining that to you?
Yeah, I think a big point you made was you don't have to be married to go see a sex therapist. I think that's a lot of people miss that disconnect, because whether you're in a relationship or not, sex is in your life somewhere, right? So, and how you deal with it, how you see it, how you manage it. And in today's world, I think a lot of people, they start dating and they're uncomfortable with their approach to sex, or how they do sex, or whatever sexual misnomers are in their head. It really dampers the relationship from the start, because they can have their own hangups. So as you said, which was very enlightening, was you don't have to be married to go to a sex therapist, or even have a partner, because a lot of stuff, you just need to know what you think is normal, or if not normal, you just need a confirmation one way or another. Yeah, normal for you
as your person. Yeah.
Yeah, and last week we talked about sex education in schools, and people who didn't have sex education in schools, who try to find an education somewhere and gets off on a different track and pulls up something wrong on the internet, or their research doesn't give the information, and they get all messed up. And sex therapists can help people there who maybe didn't get the basics of sexual education when they're growing up or in their young lives. Yeah. So it's a good balance, and we're very happy they're out there to help people out. And sometimes we just want somebody to talk to. And a lot of times when we talk about sex, it's kind of taboo, right? Like, oh, I don't know, if I talk about sex to this person, they may think I'm weird, creepy, or trying to hit on them or something. But sometimes we just need to talk to somebody, I think it's something that the public needs to know the good work that they do, and could help them, whatever their hangups are. And sometimes in a relationship, the communication is what the first thing that goes, and you just stop talking about sex, you stop talking about things. Yeah, I think
it's breaking down the barriers, because there are, like Dr. Bill mentioned earlier, there's like some very taboo aspects of sexuality, and people, like, depending on how they were raised religiously, there's some very strict religious upbringings on how, when you look at the Mormon religion, for the sake of argument, and you court. When you're dating, you're courting. Basically, that is your next step to marriage, versus kind of the normal society right now. People are out. We have Tinder. We have Match. I don't even. What's the other one that, like?
No idea.
I mean, there's things. I don't know. I'm a little too old. Obviously, I hear about this from my kids. But the fact is, there are these dating apps that are out there that allow, like, such a freedom of sexuality. Like, right then, you can, like, it's a hookup dating site where Match or Harmony are kind of more the dating aspect. But then if you were raised in a very religious family, and these are not even conversations to be had,
even after your marriage,
you're thrown into the real world, and you don't even know how to have those conversations, or who to communicate with, or if it's okay, and you feel different, and you feel weird, and this isn't how you were brought up, and someone's bringing something into your world, and you're like, wow, this makes me super uncomfortable. I might have some thought process, some interest in this, but I don't even know how to explore it. It's the perfect opportunity to meet with a sex therapist and kind of go down a path to let them explain like the concept of it. And again, kind of goes back to our opening whole scene with Dr. Ruth, who really opened the door for conversation years and years and years ago.
Yeah,
No, Bill,
go ahead. No, well, what I'm gonna say is that both of you have looked at generational issues. It used to be that these are taboo, now it's not. But just look at TV, and with inclusive theory, we have interracial couples, we have gay couples, we have seniors. I mean, there were some great Viagra type commercials that were a year and a half ago of two seniors screwing in a car. And I thought it was entertaining. I thought it was funny. But as a professional, I thought, gee, I shouldn't even be caught off guard with that, because a lot of people don't understand that it's okay for seniors to be having sex. And then let's take, and as evidenced by Pipes, your daughter, who found out that I was a co-host on Sexual Healing Podcast, asked me before we even started taping, aren't you really too old to talk about this? So, I mean, she was surprised, and her mother, her own mother's in the business. But think about when we talk about inclusivity, how long has it been that we have separate bathrooms that are handicapped, right? That used to be a situation that, oh, wow, that's kind of interesting. Or why are there OSHA requirements on tables that are lower, or a door that's wider to allow for wheelchairs? Well, if these people are going to the bathroom, isn't this a population that also are entitled to sexual feelings and sexual activity? And there are challenges that we don't understand. We don't understand because we walk on 2 feet and don't require assistance. Other than after I exercise, I may require a cane and a bag of ice on my legs. But there are therapists that will deal with that.
Yeah, if I can interject a little bit, and I'm going to. If you're
yes, you may. I give you permission.
Thank you. Let's talk about the generation aspect of what you were just saying. Let's take the show Grace and Frankie.
Don't know it.
I know it well. My wife loves that.
Okay. It's a show with Lily Tomlin and
Jane Fonda.
And their husbands are partners in, like, they're lawyers or something. And they decide that they're going to be partners in life. And they leave their wives. And these women are in their 60s, 70s, I want to say, give or take. I'm not exactly the time. It's such a phenomenal show on showing the taboo aspect of sex and the generations and conversations and how different things are. And it's actually it's a fabulous show, because it really hits on so many things, because Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda have very, very different personalities. And so for them to come together and try to work through this process with their husbands who've now fallen in love and decided to become partners, I mean, it's a great opportunity to talk about or go into therapy. God, who wouldn't go into therapy at that point? I'm sure their kids did. Just trying to figure out the sexual relationship between two people who totally love each other, and now they've decided as same-sex partners, and the women try to figure out how to come together and work through this to make sure that it's good for their kids and that their relationship with their husbands and the relationship between the women. It's actually a very fascinating show, and I think a perfect kind of talking point to sex therapy. This would be the perfect time if it was me and all of a sudden my husband decided to tell me that his best friend is going to be his lover. It'd be a phenomenal opportunity for me to have a conversation with somebody.
You bring up some very, very insightful points. Because we are open currently to diversity and to expressing this in movies and in theater and on TV, that these aren't things that are pulled out of thin air. These are things that are happening to all of us. We're exposed of all generations. All people are exposed to this activity that's not as planned. Things that we didn't grow up with necessarily, and we can, in many instances, possibly identify with those characters on TV that have rocked their world. They have changed. They've changed partners. They've changed sexual interests. They've changed interests in general. And so, how do we deal with that? How do we get a sense of self and where our own identity is? And where do we move forward going on with that in relating to people that we hadn't planned on relating to? And so, yeah, sex therapy is a tremendous opportunity to navigate those waters, explore that, and for us to evolve. I think it's a great concept. What do we do to normalize this? What do we do as a conversation starter in our podcast to say it's okay to seek out sex therapists? I can tell you 10 years ago when I made those referrals, most of the men would say, well, wait a minute, I'm paying someone to have sex with? No, that's not what's going on, and don't go down that road. This is a different opportunity to explore different thoughts, normalize different thoughts, and help you individually or with your partner navigate some of the concerns you have. We've come a very, very long way, and I'm actually kind of embarrassed that TikTok on Dr. Ruth was sent to me by my sister on the East Coast because of her ties to Judaism and the disconnect between a sex therapist and an Israeli sniper. I found fascinating as I listened to it. So, you know what? The three of us are really not that advanced. We are just following on someone else's coattails who started this decades ago. I find it fascinating, and I'm wondering what we can do to normalize that for everyone else who needs something. What are the concerns of going to a sex therapist other than finding one that's good and being able to afford it in this economy?
I don't think there's anything wrong with going to somebody. I think we're on the right path by presenting it to an audience that maybe have questions. You know, I guess there are some tells of whether or not you need a sex therapist. It could be, you know, communication breakdown. You know, talk about sex. You don't like being touched anymore. There's all kinds of things out there, and as long as we talk about it, we can share with an audience that these are normal behaviors that we go through. Our body is forever changing. Our thoughts change. Everything changes, but you're still committed to your partner. You need to invest in what's going to keep you both smiling and happy and, you know, on the same page. So, you know, trying to get roundabout way of answering your question, Bill, is how do we normalize it? You know, Dr. Ruth did a great job of normalizing. Trish brought up earlier in the conversation about a particular religion and how they're a little sheltered, they don't talk about it. Well, Judaism's pretty much the same way, right? And here's a little Jewish lady who's willing to open up and talk about sex, and how that didn't get traction out there to be normalized is puzzling. But if we can do a little bit and reach some people here and say, hey, it's okay. Now, last week, Bill, in our sexual education podcast, you mentioned how abstinence is taught in some sex education, and it's okay to have other types of sex, whether it be oral or anal or whatever, as long as you don't have intercourse, then therefore you saved yourself. Well, that can totally disrupt and fuck somebody up by having kinky sex when they don't even know about sex, and haven't even learned about sex, or just growing. And people who have saved themselves, let's just quote, saved themselves from vaginal intercourse that was done everything else, they probably need more help than anybody else, in my opinion. So,
well, they probably know more than a lot of people do.
Yeah.
Because they've gone down paths that a lot of people who are just having normal intercourse haven't gone down.
Yeah.
Well,
but that's
I
the
mean,
norm for them. That's
but
that's what they think is the norm.
my generation, we had Playboy to look at, right? It wasn't sex. It was just, you can call it art, you can call it whatever you want, soft core pornography, but it wasn't acts of sex. It was a beautiful woman, we call it exploited, you call it glorified or whatever. And that's where we kind of got our arousals, our excitement about. Well, now you can go on the internet and see whatever the hell you want to see it at no cost. So sex has advanced a lot, and I think it's confusing a lot of people as to what sex is and what intimacy is. And I think a sexual therapist can totally break that down for you and help you understand it.
Mac, and I wasn't going to bring it up. You brought it up, but when you visited the studio last weekend, and I was showing you my Playboy collection, July of 70.
Beautiful collection.
July of 74 is missing. I don't know. You probably inadvertently packed it away and
It
put
should
it
be
in your.
July of 76, Patty McGuire.
Well, the
Is that really? Is that really?
Yeah, Patty McGuire. She used to be married to Jimmy Connors.
Jimmy Carter?
I love it.
Connors, the tennis player.
Oh, that's a sports reference, right? Yeah. Unless
Well,
it's
sports reference. Look at this is in honor of Vince Scully, probably the best storyteller on radio. Anyway,
I thought it was raw oysters and vodka, Louisiana. All right, so I didn't. Okay, I've screwed that one up. Well, sex therapy is no different than having a kid going to a basketball camp, right? You're starting out with something that someone wants to do, in this case, basketball or tennis, martial arts, and you get a class, you get schooled. Why is sex so different? We assume that once someone turns 15, 16, 17, or gets morning erections and pubic hair, that they're ready to go and they fully understand it. That's crazy to me, and none of us really understand it except Dr. Ruth and a few other people who hang on to her concepts.
I think because there's no negative. You can look at a sports article. There's no negative out there about getting involved in sports. There's plenty of people that, from whatever they believe is, will tout to stay away from sex. Sex is bad. Blah blah blah. So young adults are getting it from both sides. You mentioned the sports analogy. I don't think anybody will say don't play sports unless they don't have an insurance policy to fix a broken bone. But
my son's basketball coach actually said you can come along, but you're benched, which my wife and I love because everyone else on the varsity basketball team playing hard, you got to find a laundry in like Reno on these tournaments. My son's jersey was always crisp and clean, no matter how many games he was involved in. So that's a negative.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And for sex, we've all been on the sidelines as well. So what? There's no difference.
Yeah, but my uniform was.
Go to a party and our friend leaves with the other person. You're like, damn it, I'm getting shut out again. I'm benched.
But for some reason, my uniform always got dirty.
Never been benched.
Never been benched.
Well, all the times you've never been benched, I've been
Just
benched tenfold.
I've been benched.
So how do we wrap this up, guys? Sex therapy is important. It's good.
Definitely a plus.
It's natural.
Well, we can talk about who should we go look for a sex therapist? Who needs a sex therapist?
Anybody who feels like they need to go down a path, that they feel like they need a path of acceptance, a path of figuring out what their comfort level should be, a path of this is what I like and make this okay. And not that that's a sex therapist role, but it's a sex therapist role, in my opinion, to at least walk them through the process. Obviously, I'm going to assume that a sex therapist is not going to allow somebody who has very negative aspects of sexuality in their life, that's their norm, that's the only way that they can go through the process and have a relationship and all of that. But I think a sex therapist is good for people who are a little bit more sheltered, have a tougher time having the conversation, don't understand that oral sex is okay, that masturbation is okay, that all of these things that are really like the process of figuring out who you are as a human being and understanding what you like and what your body likes and how to achieve satisfaction that's good. The people who are off the rails, sex therapists, I hope to God, are calling that shit out and saying, okay, this is not the norm. This is not the path that
Yeah, you need to go down.
down. But there's so many things that people don't understand. And kind of on that sex education concept that we talked about last week, there's so many things that kids are not taught, that it's okay to kind of touch yourself and figure out what you like and what you don't like and what's going to get you to the next level of
Without overdoing it.
Right. But I mean, people who don't know what they like can't share it with their partner. And so a sex therapist can also help the communication between partners who are uncomfortable telling the other one what they like and what they want and what's going to get them off, and all of these things. And that's, again, kind of taboo with a lot of people, and it should be a little bit more normalized. Agreed, some people are kind of off the spectrum. Not that that's a bad thing, because there's enough people that'll meet you off the spectrum to go ahead and do that. But I'm talking about kind of the more sheltered, uneducated human beings that don't really know that it's okay to do, like, really the kind of run of the mill. Again, figuring out personally what you like, touching yourself, masturbation, blah, blah, blah. Because masturbation, again, is very taboo with a lot of people, depending on how they've grown up.
The other,
or they just don't understand. They've never had the conversation. They don't know that's okay.
the other aspect of that is that if you have a couple that are disconnected, that both of them want to communicate, one person communicates their particular desire, their particular behavior that gets them off, that they're comfortable with. What do you do with the partner, the committed partner, that's not comfortable with that activity? So I think, and I don't even know when a sex therapist, when their meter is, oh shit, this guy is really off and dangerous. How do I control that, or how do I manage that, or who do I disclose this to? But there are behaviors that are acceptable, and as long as you find people, partners, groups that are comfortable with it and they're not hurting anyone, I'm assuming that's okay. I would hope that's okay. I mean, there are a lot of clubs that I don't want to belong to, and there's a lot of clubs that don't want me to be a member in. But when you find a couple where they have a great relationship and they love to do everything non-sexual together, but one is desirous of a particular freedom in sexual communication and sexual disclosure, the other one says, I'm not going on that bus. So what do you do with that? How do you respect both?
I think there's many couples out there who want to talk about sex, but one partner or the others are afraid to bring it up because they're thinking, wait a minute, you have the desire, or you want to explore this or that. They're thinking, where'd you get this from? Do you have somebody else on the side? So they get guarded sometimes by wanting to bring up sex and get guarded. And I think a good thing that we could do to serve our listeners is a couple of these links we have for sex therapy and questions to ask yourself. Put them on our website or on our Facebook or something, so people can go to that, so they can have something to read, so they can be comfortable maybe bringing it up instead of worrying about bringing it up.
Let me ask you a global question, the two of you, and I refuse to answer this. If you have a committed relationship and someone is desiring something beyond that relationship, beyond what your partner will offer, is that okay to go beyond, outside of that relationship sexually, to promote, to pursue your endeavors? I just need an answer that's notarized, Mac and Pipes.
Okay, I'm going to answer the question. How I would suppress it. I would not explore it, because if I did, my wife would be totally crushed and devastated, and I wouldn't bring that upon her at all. So I would. I think if I have a common desire, I think there's maybe ancillary desires that could complement or be semi-like that may be compatible. But if it's an adamant, yeah, I'm not going to jeopardize that. I mean, it's not worth it for me personally.
A great honest answer, but what you're telling me is I wore this color shirt for nothing. I've done nothing for you to entice you. Is that what you're saying?
I do love blue.
Well, you know, and so it goes down to an interesting. I don't even know why I answered that or asked the question because I wouldn't answer
I
it.
hadn't answered it yet.
Well, because her husband is snuck into my studio and threatened me. Do you have an answer to that?
Yeah, we do it just every Tuesday at 7, missionary position.
Okay, you're recording on
this all week to get ready for the missionary.
Oh wait. Oh yeah, tomorrow's Tuesday.
All right, good.
Trying to figure out what day it was.
So I guess the answer is, and I asked the question to be able to answer it this way, is that part of our freedom to do what we want to do and feel comfortable with comes a responsibility to be with a partner that we've committed to. And yeah, we can identify these issues and our interests, our desires, our erotic thoughts, but it's also maybe it's okay to suppress them out of respect for and love and commitment to our partner if we are all lucky to have that level of relationship. Is that?
And that's me personally, but there's a lot of open marriages out there. There's a lot of people who have no problem with that. And that's, I mean, I'm not saying good or bad. I'm just saying me personally, and I know how my partner will respond. But I would, yeah, I'm not against open marriages. I'm not against any of that stuff. So,
so my shirt's okay. So I can wear the shirt again.
David and I have an open marriage with each other.
Oh, we do. Pillow talk a lot.
Why the hell am I the third man out on this?
But you know what? We put up a pillow wall. That only lasts seconds.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Always the pillow wall.
Which is perfect. A pillow wall lasting seconds works great for me because that's how long I last. So I want. Was that a good joke? No, just joking. I'm a player.
If it was a good joke, Cody would be howling, but he doesn't howl, so we know it didn't pass the test.
So I think that let's look at posting some references, referrals to sex therapists. I think it was a good conversation. It brought out some things that were important for us to express, but it also brought out a lot of unknowns because we really don't know where we're going societally. We don't know we know that from a social point of view, it's okay to explore our desires, but we really haven't developed in a society that allows us to explore our own personal desires with a commitment to people around us and to understand where those limitations are. And I think it's fair to say that a lot of us have voiced our opinions in the last few years very adamantly and very aggressively, but we may not have been doing this responsibly without an understanding how we impact others, important people that are others around us, if that makes sense. So just another facet of our sexual health podcast. I thank you guys for listening. I thank you guys for tuning in. Jose, Shelby, take us out. Shelby, let us know as Jose's taking us out how everyone can get a hold of us and hear our shit.
You just want to search Sexual Healing Podcast. We're on TikTok, YouTube, and on Facebook it's going to be Dr. Bill, Mac, and Pipes.
You took a little bit of time to answer that. I guess you were taking the handcuffs and the red ball out of your mouth. So thank you.
Oh, that's harsh. God. Thank you all.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends.
Thank you for joining the show that never ends. We will pause with our part. However, you can reach us at sexualhealingpodcast.org. We are here to make your sexual health be everything you want it to be. We'll visit with you next week for another episode of Sexual Healing Podcast. Stay sexy out there.